Morning, guys. Today is the 25th, and I am going to make, as planned, today 4 videos. Now, don't hold me to it. I do have a hard day ahead of me, and tonight a hard basketball game. Also apologize, I still haven't gotten that haircut, so it's getting to be bushy. I don't know. Anyways, today, this video, let's do the first one here. Let's talk about government spying. As some of you know, I used to have top secret clearance, in which there are things that I cannot publicly talk about, and I did take a lifetime vow about that. What I want to talk about is the general intelligence community and the assumptions, and of course the media lying or distorting the reality of the spying community. The simple fact is that the United States government and all the world governments participate in a mutually understood aggressive spying campaign on everybody. That means agents, technology, signals, processing, spying on their own citizens, spying on everyone's citizens. Okay, it's supposed to be against the law in the United States. Trust me, there are secret laws that have been written. A lot of people don't know that. First of all, laws are not written by politicians. Laws are written by law groups, and then lobbyists are paid to get those laws into place because they always interest a certain group over another group. And then those laws are the ones that are public. There are also secret laws that are written that are not put on the books, that are just internal to the government. And you have to realize that most of these alphabet agencies don't have congressional oversight, not in the way that you think of congressional oversight. Like literally, Congress sometimes has to be what's called read in to a clearance, which means that they're read the Riot Act if they violate, and then they will be told what a program is. So what you have is a case where different agencies will be doing the same basic work. Like maybe they're both making supercomputers specifically to spy on Verizon cell phones. I don't know what the program would be, but there are these different programs, and they could be doing redundant things, which can be good in terms of cross-referencing or backing up each other's intelligence, but obviously is hugely wasteful. And I saw a lot of government waste when I was at the DoD. So there is a vast network of intelligence communities. It's an entire microverse by itself, and it's something that people, they spend their whole lives in, they get lost in, and that's like all they do. They really don't study about life or anything. They go to work, and all their job is to really kind of spy on the entire world. And so you've got to realize that they are patriots in their own minds, and they're patriots in their own hearts. They have a very different view on what America is and what it's for. They have a different interpretation of what the Constitution means. And you also need to understand the Constitution, as it's written, is not the current law, okay? The Constitution has been duplicated into corporate code, and that corporate code is the actual law. So that's how they can regulate your firearms, so they can regulate your free speech. They can have no-knock raids, whatever, because they have now a codized, a codified version of law. So it's legal, right? It's not lawful. It's legal. So you're not under common law anymore, not as you understand from Black's Law, or anything that you are familiar with. Now, that doesn't mean that a cop couldn't be acting based on a sense of common law, but there are cases where people defeat the jurisdiction of a court under the UCC, and then the judge switches from one jurisdiction to another, and if the person makes a mistake, the judge catches them up and then puts them away. Like the judge might change a flag, or they might change their robes, and if the person greets them in a way as equals, then they're basically saying, I'm under your jurisdiction, and so then the judge is able to catch them. These are rare cases, obviously. For the most part, people have no idea which jurisdiction they are under, and they just participate as is. And so because there's these different jurisdictions, and each agency seems to be making up its own jurisdiction and its own policies, they sometimes enforce them on each other, and they refuse to cooperate. And that's where the deep state comes from. It's not just about the New World Order. There's actually competitive deep states within the United States. And in fact, what my point is about the different spying programs is that there would be a spying program, just like all the ones the United States have, in any country that has equal capacity, size, and infinite resources. And why do we have infinite resources? In a video I'll make maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, I will talk about why the United States government has more power than any government has ever had. But in this case, I will just say that the United States government can create new departments basically at a whim. And every time they create a new department, it's to cover a new thing so that they can, again, apply the sure and have a better position in every basic circumstance. And the only reason a government, say like North Korea, couldn't do the same is just a lack of people. A lack of people, lack of time, lack of course, access to the resources, the technical know-how. The United States government took the technical know-how that they had and also that the Third Reich had. You know, the Bush family brought that in and folded it into the CIA. And then they've also, of course, spied on the Soviets and the Chinese. And so the United States government has a very good handle on how to handle situations. Usually, if they don't know something, they could just look back in the literature and see how it used to be handled. And there's so many different spying techniques. So never since the Warring States or the Samurai era has there been a more aggressive spying regime than the modern world, and far more than James Bond or MI6. The United States government has way more resources. It's practically infinite. I mean, at this point, they've got quantum computers, or at least semi-quantum computers is what they've released, which means they probably have the regular quantum computers. They're not going to tell everybody. From what I hear, you know, around the internet, they've duplicated the NSA. They probably duplicated it twice, at least. I mean, where do you think $6 to $9 trillion went? It just doesn't disappear, right? No, $6 trillion doesn't disappear. It's not the same as an Iraq war where you had $100 billion disappear into warlords' pockets. That's a fact, by the way. You can go and you can find out about the warehouses of printed money, literally still in its cellophane wrappers. The $900 million just disappears overnight on an airplane to Iraq. That's back in 2004, 2005. But the $6 to $9 trillion doesn't disappear. That's secret budget, right? That secret budget went towards something. And, you know, what is the United States government up to? I don't know if it's planning to round people up in FEMA camps. I honestly don't know. I can tell you this. There are so many different interested factions within the government that it would not surprise me that the reason the government keeps coming to a standstill is that there are a lot of pro-American forces and a lot of anti-American forces within the American government. And I want to distinguish between the American government and the American people, because the American people are still, by and large, there are a lot of socialists among us, and there's a whole lot of anti-Americans and socialist apologists and people that will also undermine America via just the words that they share and the ideas that they propound. But for the most part, most Americans are, believe in a government of the people, for the people, by the people, and they believe in their inalienable rights. They still have Lockean values, Jeffersonian values. However, inside the government, that may not be the case. In fact, it's probably almost certainly not the case. And you think about the TSA. I mean, come on, they've got you going through a machine and you have to put your hands up. You think that that's an act. You can make a machine where your hands go down. If you put your hands up so that you are automatically taught how to behave like a criminal, so that if a cop or a TSA agent, DE agent says, freeze, hands up, you automatically, I'm ready to go. I mean, it's not just an engineering aspect. It's an entire game of mentalism, right? And all the textbooks on mentalism and marketing make it clear that repetitious, you can absolutely control how people think and what they're going to believe over time. And that's really what you need to know as far as, how to respond to it. Instead of once upon a time, going towards the sovereign citizen thing and going, I don't want to participate in the system. Instead, what I've done is I've tried to clothe myself in the system so that I have more apparati I can pull on the same strings they can pull on. Obviously, no one can stop. You better pay your taxes, because if they no-knock raid you and somebody gets shot, who's that on? That's on you. I mean, the government, there's no way to hold them accountable. There's zero ability to stop the IRS, or Fish and Wildlife is another one. Just don't poach. That's the solution. Be as orthodox. Clothe yourself in orthodox technique, because the more orthodox technique you have, the less touchable you are in a system where there are so many barbs designed. And yeah, it's bad for business, all the regulation and all the extra taxes and everything. It's absolutely bad for business. However, if you know how to use it, it can be turned to an advantage. If you make yourself stick out too much, like I obviously can stick out, but if you make yourself stick out, because you're refusing to pay speeding fiend. Like, what are you really getting out of that? Probably nothing. So just accept the fact that right now it's a huge monster. Eventually it'll get oversized and it'll collapse under its own weight, just like any old monster or dinosaur, right? Eventually they get too big, they can't exist anymore. So think about that. I'll be back later for another video. See you in a bit.